Cards declined. That's what my sister heard, right after I exposed $10 million worth of family secrets on a giant screen at her birthday party. Hi, I'm Madeline. I paid for everything. College, cars, designer parties. Well, they gave me silence in return, not even a birthday text. So I did what no one expected. I turned her picture-perfect party into a truth bomb. And when the lights came up, no one looked at my family the same way again. Have you ever been the invisible one? The giver, the fixer, the one they only call when something breaks? Tell me, what would you have done after giving everything and being forgotten? You'd think a daughter who sent over $10,000 a month would at least get a birthday text. I didn't. The morning light filtered through the blinds of my 23rd floor condo, casting soft lines across the kitchen island. I had already finished yoga, responded to the early market alerts, and was halfway through my green smoothie when the silence reminded me, again, that no one had said a word to me yesterday. My birthday. 52 unread work emails, 3 texts from colleagues, 0 from Mom or Haley. I took another sip, slightly bitter from the kale, and opened my banking app. Routine. I scrolled past my own accounts and tapped into the scheduled transfers. Linda Bennett, $4,500. Haley Bennett, $6,200 every month, like clockwork. Mom always used to say I was the strong one, the dependable one. That was just another way of saying the one we take for granted. My thumb hovered over the transfer button for Haley. Just a moment, but long enough for something to crack inside. I stared at the name, the last name we still shared, the one she turned into hashtags and real estate branding. I tapped to confirm. The transfer processed. Again, no acknowledgement, no thanks, just more silence. Mom called exactly 6 minutes later. Her timing was uncanny. Madeline, she began, smooth and clipped as ever. I've been meaning to call. I wanted to run something by you. Haley's birthday is coming up, and I think this year calls for something elevated. I'm considering the Phoenician ballroom. My breath caught, just slightly. The Phoenician? It's elegant, she said. Grand, but tasteful. She's turning 29. Next year's the big one, so this is like a prelude. And with her follower count, it's important to show polish. Branding, visibility, perception, you get it. Of course I did. That was why I paid for her website, her photography sessions, her business cards. It was all perception. And I was the invisible hand behind it. You want me to plan it? I asked, already knowing the answer. You're so good at these things, Madeline, and you always make everything look seamless. I stared out the window, the desert mountains in the distance glowing under the morning sun. Okay, I said. I'll take care of it. Wonderful, she cooed. You're a gem. She hung up without asking how I'd spent my birthday. I stood there for a moment, the phone still in my hand, my smoothie forgotten. The kitchen was silent again, sterile, composed, exactly like my life. No clutter, no color, no surprises, except this year there would be one. I walked into my bedroom and opened the closet. On the top shelf, behind a stack of winter scarves I never used, was a photo album. Thick, dusty, untouched. I brought it to the bed and sat cross-legged, flipping it open. Page after page of Haley. Haley's 5th birthday. Ponies, tiaras, a bounce house. Haley at 10. Makeover party, cupcakes, spa robes. Sweet 16. Her in a limo with 8 of her closest friends, surrounded by gifts and glitter and a cake taller than me. Not a single page had my name on it. I kept turning. Maybe they were out of order. Maybe something had fallen out. But no, it wasn't a mistake. It was just the way it always had been. I closed the album softly and rested it on my lap. My fingers ran over the textured leather of the cover. I remembered that sweet 16 party. I wasn't invited. Not really. I was there to help clean up. That same weekend, I had gotten my first paycheck from waitressing at the cafe off Indian School Road. I remember hiding the envelope in my sock drawer and crying, not from pride, but because it felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. My independence, born out of necessity. It had always been that way. I was the fallback. The second thought, the backup plan. Haley got blessed. I got balance sheets. I picked up my phone again, almost by instinct, and opened Instagram. There she was, Haley, posing next to a brand new Porsche, one heel popped, hands cupped in mock surprise. The caption, "Grateful, blessed, 29, and shining." I stared at the image for a long time. Everything about it was manufactured. The pose, the filters, the gratitude. But it worked. Thousands of likes, fire emojis, praise in the comments. Goals. Queen energy. Manifesting this for myself. I shut off the phone and stood, walking back into the kitchen. They wanted me to plan another party. Another page for Haley's ever-expanding album of curated memories. Another chapter in the narrative where I stayed in the wings, arranging the spotlight for her to shine in. So I would. But this time, the surprise wouldn't be cake. Being the strong one means never getting asked how you're doing, just how much you can give. The sun had started to lower itself behind Camelback Mountain, casting a soft pink hue across my living room. The desert dusk was always beautiful, quiet, still, almost sacred in its routine. But tonight, the silence wasn't peace, it was purpose. I sat cross-legged in my home office, the walls bathed in amber light from the setting sun. On the whiteboard in front of me, I'd outlined what most people would mistake for a consulting presentation. Arrows, dollar figures, timeline markers, everything neatly categorized. Tuition, rent, emergency fund, luxury purchases. Except this wasn't a client project. It was my life. 2 monitors were open in front of me. On the left, 30 years of bank records painstakingly downloaded and sorted into folders. On the right, a keynote slideshow titled Final Gift, March 11th, 2023. I exhaled slowly, clicked into folder number 3, 2011 college years. Haley's tuition payments, broken up by semester, book stipends, meal plans, rent checks sent directly to her landlords, and right below those, my pay stubs from working the night shift at Lou's Diner, junior year of high school. I clicked another folder, 2015 special events, $4,200, Haley's Cancun graduation trip, $8,700, birthday trip to Napa Valley, $1,950, spa weekend with her friends. And then, at the very bottom, $172, therapy session for emotional overwhelm. Billed to my own card. Not hers, mine. Mom had called that week, asking if I'd mind covering Haley's breakthrough moment in therapy. She's finally starting to see her patterns, Maddie. This could be big for her. I'd nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Funny how I'd paid for other people's healing but never booked my own. The memory faded as I clicked on another folder. 2018, family business. There it was, Linda's email, all caps in the subject line. Thank you for saving the legacy. I opened it. Dearest Madeline, I can't begin to express how grateful we are for the $2.5 million. The business was hanging by a thread, and your transfer saved not just our company, but our family name. Haley said you didn't even blink when she called. You're our rock, our anchor. Love, Mom. No mention of repayment. No follow-up. No apology for not asking before sending over my company's retirement reserve fund. Just appreciation. An assumption. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the whiteboard. Numbers didn't lie, and these numbers told a story no one else had bothered to read. Being the strong one meant I was the vault, the foundation, the fail-safe. And over the years, they had learned that Maddie doesn't break. Until now. A ping echoed from my phone. I picked it up, already knowing. Haley had posted on Instagram. She was standing next to a DJ turntable, laughing with some celebrity mixmaster I vaguely recognized from a Netflix show. Her caption read, "Can't wait to celebrate the big 2-9 in style, manifesting this night already. Saharan custom cupcakes. Joan desert vibes. Joan Car's grateful." I put the phone face down. She hadn't even messaged me about it, but I knew the bill would arrive soon enough. I turned back to the monitors. I clicked the rename tab on the Keynote file. Final gift, March 11th, 2023. I opened the first slide. The background was simple, white. The font, black. Neutral. Professional. Slide 1, 30 years of support. Slide 2, let's talk about what love has cost. I started inputting numbers, dates, cross-referencing receipts. College, bailouts, birthday weekends, car leases, Botox treatments for mom, apartment down payments, Chanel handbags, donations to charity galas I never attended. I scrolled through old texts from Haley. "Can you float me until Friday? The rent is insane. Any chance you can Venmo me for the caterer? We're short last minute. OMG, you're a lifesaver. I'll Zelle you back after my commission clears." Of course, she never did. I clicked save and shut the laptop. My office suddenly felt too small. I reached for the drawer beneath my desk and pulled out a black file folder. Inside, legal documents. Drafted quietly over the past 2 weeks with Mr. Martinez, a family trust attorney recommended by one of my clients. Termination of support. Asset reallocation. Proof of financial transfers. The paper felt heavy in my hand, not physically, but in meaning. I whispered aloud, maybe to myself, maybe to the ghosts in the walls. Let's see who's the strong one now. The sun had fully set, casting the room into shadows. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, folder in hand, listening to the silence that used to feel like calm. I didn't feel guilty. That scared me more than anything. Gold balloons, Dom Perignon, the DJ's set list. Every detail was perfect, except what came next. I stood near the back of the ballroom, clipboard in hand, watching the final floral arrangements being wheeled in. Dozens of white peonies, flown in from Holland, were tucked into massive crystal vases, gleaming under the soft flicker of the chandeliers. A sea of elegance, curated to impress. And it did. The Phoenician's grand ballroom had never looked better. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the camelback mountain silhouette in the distance. Every chair was draped in ivory silk, place cards embossed in gold. Even the cocktail napkins bore Haley's monogram. I had arranged it all, down to the precise lighting filters, chosen to flatter skin tones on camera. Linda was hovering nearby, her sequin jacket sparkling with every movement. She walked over, smile tight, tone brisk. "Thanks for pulling this off, Maddie. It really means a lot to your sister." I nodded, barely glancing at her. "Glad to help." She gave a shallow pat on my shoulder and moved on, already scanning the room for someone more important to talk to. I turned toward the projection screen near the stage. The tech team gave me a thumbs up. The USB was loaded. The transitions were smooth, everything ready on cue. Mr. Martinez stood unobtrusively in a corner, a small man in a tailored gray suit, giving me a subtle nod. He knew the plan. Everything was going according to schedule. I checked the clock. 6:58 p.m. At exactly 7 p.m., the lights shifted. The DJ began spinning a soft bossa nova track, and guests flooded in. Scottsdale's elite, dressed to sparkle. Women floated in with designer clutches and perfect brows. Men in sleek tailored suits, drinks in hand, business cards already half traded. The ballroom buzzed with curated laughter, the clinking of glasses, the clatter of designer heels on polished floors. I stood still. Then came the main event. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC's voice rang through the hall, "please welcome the star of the evening, Miss Haley Bennett." Spotlight swept toward the grand entrance. A hush fell over the crowd. And then Haley appeared. She wore crimson Oscar de la Renta, fitted like it had been sewn onto her. Her hair was done in the style currently trending on TikTok, loose waves, perfectly tousled. She carried the latest Hermes Mini Kelly, phone in her other hand already recording. The applause erupted. "Happy birthday, darling!" Mom squealed, rushing forward to embrace her. Cameras flashed as they posed. The practiced hug, the air kiss, the angle perfected for Instagram. I watched from the side, sipping my sparkling water, unseen but very much in control. The gifts began rolling in. Gucci boxes, Cartier bags, handwritten notes from influencers. Haley clapped and laughed, holding each gift up for her stories, tagging every brand. She was glowing, radiant, in her element. Then came the cue. The MC tapped the mic again. "Before we get to cake, we have a very special presentation from someone near and dear, Haley's sister, Madeline." Every head turned. I stepped forward, heels silent on the carpet. My heart was steady, strangely calm. Haley's face brightened. Surprised, maybe a little confused. Mom looked nervous, something flickering behind her perfectly composed features. I stood at the center of the stage and took the small remote from the technician. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady. "Before we move on to cake and champagne, I wanted to share a little walk down memory lane." Some guests leaned in. Others kept sipping their drinks, half listening. I clicked the remote. Slide 1. A grainy photo of a young Haley on her 5th birthday, grinning behind a 3-tier cake. Pink balloons, tiara, dozens of friends. "A classic," I said lightly, "the year she wanted a Barbie princess party." Laughter rippled. Slide 2. Haley at 10, on a pony in Malibu. Then 13, Paris. 16, an enormous Sweet 16 bash with hired dancers and a photo booth. The photos kept coming. So did the murmurs. Slide 6. Her college acceptance letter, and beneath it, a screenshot of the tuition payments, all made from my account. A hush settled. Slide 7. Haley's graduation photo. Then her first real estate branding shoot tagged sponsored. Below that, a line reading, "Photography paid by M. Bennett, $1,200. I turned to face the audience, voice still soft. Over the years, I've had the honor of supporting Haley's dreams. Tuition, rent, trips, therapy, even tonight's party. Gasps. Slide 8. A chart. 30 years of transfers. Neatly itemized. Total amount, $10.7 million. Haley's hand flew to her mouth. Linda stepped forward, whispering something to the MC. He froze. I clicked again. Slide 9. Haley posing next to a Porsche. Captioned, "Manifesting abundance, Ditar grateful." Next to it, the lease breakdown, $2,400 per month, paid by me. The room fell silent. I let the wait sit for a breath. 2. "Mom always said we keep things classy," I said, turning back toward the screen. "But I've learned, nothing cheapens class faster than entitlement." I scanned the crowd. "You might want to put your phones away," I said, letting the final slide fade in. Mr. Martinez stepped forward quietly, placing a small stack of folders on the side table near the mic. Termination notices, legal evidence, trust redistribution papers. It was all real now. They wanted a slideshow of childhood memories. I gave them a spreadsheet of consequences. The ballroom dimmed. The light from the chandeliers faded into soft pools of amber, and the projector screen glowed with a gentle white static. Guests shifted in their seats, whispering behind champagne glasses, the unease growing like a quiet hum beneath the elegance. I stood center stage, microphone in hand, calm, straight-backed. The remote rested between my fingers. Click. The screen flickered to the first image. A little girl sitting on a living room floor, the carpet slightly wrinkled, a single candle stuck in a mini vanilla cupcake. No decorations, no gifts, no family. Just a lopsided smile and a party hat slipping sideways. "That was my 5th birthday," I said. "Mom had a closing that day. Haley had a ballet rehearsal." No one clapped. The tension thickened. Click. Slide 2. A blurry shot of a school library. Me again, age 10, bent over a textbook. The timestamp read, Saturday, May 15th, my birthday. The same day Haley was performing in her first Nutcracker recital. They said I'd understand when I got older. Click. Slide 3. A ledger. My bank transfers. 2009, $6,000 for Haley's braces. 2012, $18,000 for her freshman dorm and books. 2015, $12,000 for a down payment on her car. A low murmur began weaving through the crowd. Click. Photos of Haley's lavish birthdays appeared. Paris, Cabo, Napa, sparkling tiaras, yachts, coordinated outfits. Below each, a note. Sponsored by M. Bennett. Click. An email from Linda dated 2018. Maddie, we need your help. The company's bleeding. We might lose the house. If you can wire $2.5 million this week, I promise we'll make this right. Underneath, my wire confirmation. Transaction complete. No repayment ever made. I turned toward the crowd. Over the last 3 decades, I've contributed a little over $10 million to this family, quietly, without contracts, without thanks. Linda rose from her table, her sequined sleeve trembling. Madeline, this isn't appropriate. We'll talk at home. I sent that email in confidence, she hissed, eyes darting at the guests. Click. Slide 6. A series of social media posts. Haley on a yacht. Haley with Cartier bags. Haley holding champagne beside a caption. Manifesting blessings. Jacques grind never stops. Below, matching bank records. All payments from me. Haley stood abruptly. You're just jealous. You think this makes you look noble, but it's pathetic. Who gives money and then throws it in everyone's face? I tilted my head, unfazed. Who takes money and then forgets to say thank you? Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Mr. Martinez began walking toward the stage, quiet and deliberate. I turned back to the screen. Click. Slide 7. Termination of financial support, effective immediately. Followed by a list of legal items, end of monthly transfers, suspension of credit cards, revocation of real estate endorsements, withdrawal from all business guarantees. At the bottom, signatures, mine and Mr. Martinez's, dated, filed. Haley's face had gone pale. Her fingers moved across her phone with practiced speed until she stopped, froze. A sharp buzz echoed from her direction. She looked at her phone again. Her expression shifted from outrage to horror. She turned it toward Linda. They froze my cards. Linda fumbled in her purse, pulling out her own phone. As she checked her email, her face crumbled. From where I stood, I could see her screen. Dozens of alerts. Account alert, suspicious activity. Review required. Withdrawal blocked. Overdraft protection denied. Guests had gone quiet. Phones were discreetly pulled out, recording, texting, maybe Googling. Some were already whispering. I raised the mic again. I understand this might feel dramatic, but this isn't about revenge. I met my mother's eyes. This is about truth and the price of silence. I stepped to the side as Mr. Martinez placed a folder at the corner of the stage. These documents have been filed with the appropriate legal and financial institutions, he said calmly. All actions are effective as of now. Linda slowly sat down. Her hands shook. I built my life around protecting this family, I said, voice still low but clear. But protection without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. Haley sank back into her chair, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. No longer the influencer, just a woman with nowhere to hide. Family secrets stay in the family, Mom had told me once years ago when I asked why we never talked about Dad's bankruptcy, about the loans she took in my name. That night, I stopped being family. Now I had simply made it official. I looked around the room one final time. The chandeliers still sparkled. The white peonies still glowed. The influencers still recorded, though now their expressions were more intrigued than impressed. This isn't revenge, I said into the mic. This is reality, and it starts tonight. I clicked the remote once more. The screen went black. Silence. Then the slow exhale of an entire room realizing the story they thought they were part of was never really theirs to begin with. When I stopped speaking, they finally started listening. The days after the ballroom incident unfolded like a slow-motion collapse. Quiet, precise, inevitable. Not a single person at Morgan & Stanley mentioned the event directly, but the way people looked at me had changed. There was more than just respect now. There was a hush of recognition, like I had done something most people only fantasized about. I showed up to work the next morning with my usual low bun, pressed blazer, and zero tolerance for dramatics. My team didn't tiptoe. They simply nodded and handed me reports. Our morning check-in lasted exactly 7 minutes, just how I liked it. But outside the office walls, Scottsdale was humming. The local press couldn't get enough of the story. Financial analyst exposes family exploitation, live at socialite's birthday bash, read one headline. Another, from pearls to power, the quiet woman who changed the narrative. It wasn't the fame that unsettled me, it was the noise. I had lived my life quietly, effectively, invisibly. Suddenly, I was a headline. 2 weeks later, a courier dropped off a cream-colored envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. I recognized the cursive instantly, curled just so, elegant but dated. My mother's hand. Dear Madeline, I remember your 5th birthday now. You had a strawberry cupcake. I told myself I was working for our future. But the truth is, I was working for my pride. I watched that slideshow in disbelief, not just at what you shared, but what I had chosen to forget. I am ashamed, not just of the money, but of the love I made you beg for. I have resigned from the firm. I've stepped down from every board. I am starting over. Not as Patricia Wilson, real estate queen, but as a mother who failed and wants to learn how to listen. I hope one day you'll let me try. With regret, Mom. The paper trembled in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat there in my office, the desert sun reflecting off the buildings outside, letting the silence wrap around me like a familiar coat. For once, it didn't feel so lonely. A week later, I came home late from work. My heels clicked softly against the hallway of my condo, and as I reached my door, I saw a figure sitting just outside. It was Haley. No makeup, no designer heels, no phone glued to her hand, just jeans, a simple gray hoodie, and swollen eyes that had clearly been crying. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. I didn't say anything. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. After a pause, she followed. She sat on the edge of my couch like a guest who didn't know the rules anymore. Her gaze moved around the apartment, at the books lined perfectly on the shelf, the minimalist art, the neat pile of financial journals on the coffee table. I lost my job, she said finally, and my license might get revoked. My agent dropped me. I can't even log into my influencer account. They're calling me a fraud. I nodded. I read. Haley looked down at her hands. You were right. I was living off your back and acting like I built the house. I poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. You don't have to say everything today. She took the glass, her hands trembling slightly. I'm not here for money. I don't know who I am without it all. The glam, the followers, Mom, even the fights. I feel blank. I sat down across from her, watching the way her shoulders hunched inward like she was trying to take up less space. This was a woman I had never met before, not the curated version for the world, but the raw, stripped-down Haley. I've started therapy, I said. She looked up, surprised. Dr. Sarah Thompson, every Thursday, Community Center on Lincoln Street. There's room for 3 chairs. Her eyes widened. Are you saying? I'm saying, I interrupted gently, we can try to fix what's left, but we're starting with the truth. No more pretending, no more curated captions. Haley bit her lip. I'll go. I nodded. Then I'll call her. That evening I dialed Dr. Thompson's number. She answered with her calm, practiced tone. "There's room at 5 p.m. this Thursday," she said. "Will all three of you be coming?" "Maybe," I replied, "but it starts with 2. The therapy room smelled faintly of peppermint oil and carpet cleaner. The walls were painted a pale blue, and a small window looked out onto the community center garden where seniors were tending vegetables. I sat in one of the 3 chairs, Haley in the other. The third, empty, but not forever. Dr. Thompson nodded at us both. "We won't solve everything today," she said. "We're just making space." Haley and I didn't speak much during that first session. The silence wasn't tense. It was heavy, yes, but filled with something else too, like we were building a foundation, word by quiet word. At one point, Dr. Thompson asked what we remembered most about each other from childhood. Haley said, "She always packed my lunch when Mom forgot." I said, "She used to draw hearts on my notebooks." We looked at each other. That moment hung between us, tender, tentative. For the first time, we were all in the same room, really in it. My 33rd birthday didn't have a ballroom, a DJ, or a guest list. Just a lopsided cake, 2 familiar faces, and something far better than applause: peace. The bell above the door at Paradise Cafe chimed softly as I stepped inside. The scent of cinnamon rolls and fresh brewed coffee wrapped around me like a sweater. This was the same little cafe where I had worked part-time in high school, the same one Mom used to drive past without noticing I was inside, bussing tables to pay for textbooks. The checkered tile floors hadn't changed, nor had the scratched wooden counter or the old jukebox that only played jazz standards. But what had changed was us. Linda stood first. Her hug wasn't tight with guilt or showy like it used to be. It was simple, present. When she let go, her eyes were misty but steady. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said. Then came Haley holding a cake that leaned slightly to one side. Pink frosting, smudged in places, spelled out "Happy 33 Maddie" in almost legible letters. A few mismatched candles poked out from the top. It was the ugliest, most beautiful cake I had ever seen. Haley grinned. I dropped it once, then tried to fix it, which didn't work. I laughed, for real this time. It's perfect. We sat in a booth by the window. The table was set with paper plates, plastic forks, and a small vase holding 3 daisies. In front of me sat a photo album, brown leather with the title etched in gold, "Real Family Memories." I ran my fingers over the letters. Inside, page after page was filled with Polaroids, snapshots from therapy sessions where we looked tired but brave, from hikes through Camelback Mountain, where Haley nearly fell into a cactus, from volunteer days at the community food bank, hairnets on our heads and joy in our eyes. There was one photo of Mom, apron dusted with flour, holding a burnt pie with pride. Another of Haley giving out job fair flyers at the local recreation center. "We didn't want this to be about gifts," Linda said, reaching into her bag, "but there's one more thing for the album." She handed me a small square photo, a printout of a candid moment. Me, last Thanksgiving, sitting between them, head thrown back in laughter I didn't even remember giving. "You looked happy," Haley whispered. "I was," I said, placing the photo into the album. Near the back was one familiar page, the spread from my 5th birthday, just a dusty, empty living room, a single cupcake on the table, and next to it, a space I had always left blank. I reached into my purse and pulled out a Polaroid from tonight, Haley holding the cake, Mom lighting the last candle. I tucked it gently into the empty sleeve. "Now it's full," I murmured. We shared the cake, laughing at the uneven layers, the way the candles had melted sideways. There were no photographers, no branded handbags, just us, eating slightly too sweet frosting and wiping it off with napkins printed with smiley faces. "I have an announcement," I said after the last bite. Linda and Haley looked up, eyes suddenly nervous. "I've accepted a transfer, Chicago branch. I move in June." Their faces fell, just slightly, not with fear, but with uncertainty. I'll come back every month, I added quickly. Our counseling sessions won't stop, but I need this, a fresh start. Haley nodded. You deserve it. Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. We'll miss you, but I'm proud of you. I didn't need to hear that, but I didn't hate hearing it either. The door chimed again. In walked two young women in business casual clothes, holding a small paper bag. Sorry to interrupt, one said. Haley, we just wanted to drop this off. Haley stood, surprised. Oh, this is Zoe and Ashley. We work together at HR Solutions. They handed me the bag. Inside was a mug that read, Backup plans make the best leaders. I laughed. You're giving away my origin story. Ashley smiled. She talks about you all the time. As they left, Haley sat back down, quieter now. They're good people. I like feeling useful. You are, I said simply. The sun had begun to set, painting the street outside in soft gold. Inside, the cafe lights flickered on, not harshly, but like warm little reminders that the day didn't end in darkness. It just changed shades. I looked around the table one more time. Linda, once unreachable, now humble, still learning, but trying. Haley, no longer polished and distant, but real, imperfect. And here, me, not invisible, not bitter, just whole. You know, Haley said, poking the last of the frosting, next year's cake? We'll bake it together. Maybe we'll even make it level. I smiled. No promises. I kind of liked the wobble. And I did. It reminded me that healing wasn't a perfect process, that love wasn't performance, and that the best gifts, the real ones, come long after the party's over. Outside, the Arizona sun dipped behind the mountains. The cafe windows caught the last streaks of amber light, holding it just a little longer than they should. And for once, I didn't feel like the strong one. I just felt loved. There was no applause when I blew out the candles this time, just two warm smiles and a cake that leaned slightly to the left. But in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't in decades. I belonged. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stop holding everything together and let others learn to carry their own weight. Family doesn't begin with blood. It begins the moment someone chooses to sit beside you, even when it's uncomfortable. And healing doesn't always come with grand gestures. Often, it starts with one brave conversation and maybe a lopsided cake. If this story reminded you of your own journey or someone you love, I'd be honored if you shared a thought below. You never know who might feel a little less alone because of it.